Baseball's biggest agent, someone you can argue is sports' biggest agent, did not have his best offseason leading into 2024. Probably his worst, although I'm sure most people feel like it was for a valid reason. Boras had 5 bigger name free agents and got none of them the big contract they were going for. Cody Bellinger, a Boras client, was clearly not someone to give a long-term contract to. He had a good 2023, but that was after an abysmal 2021 and 2022, and even though his numbers were good in 23, he wasn't hitting the ball as hard. It was pretty obvious he just wasn't the 2019 MVP type player he used to be. Nobody was willing to bite, and as a result, he had to settle back with the Cubs on a 3-year deal full of opt-outs. 9 years and $250 million would have been great for Bellinger, but 2024 has proven exactly why it wouldn't have been great for the Cubs or any team. He hasn't been bad this year, but he's also definitely not worth $27+ million a year for 9 years. Bellinger's been an above average bat this year with little power. JD Martinez, someone who actually kind of revamped things again with the Dodgers for a year, hitting over 30 homers for the first time since 2019, had a hard time finding a team, mostly because he's just a DH and not someone you can trust in the field, so forget any long-term deal for a 36-year-old DH, settling with the Mets for a year and $12 million. Matt Chapman, a Boras client, wanted a long-term deal, and it's not like he was a bad player in Toronto. He was good, but nowhere near great and just insanely streaky, and as a result, nobody budged, and Chapman had to settle with a short-term deal in San Francisco. The same thing Blake Snell did, although his was more unique. Snell is a guy who was coming off of a Cy Young Award in 2023. Usually if someone wins a Cy Young Award and reaches free agency, by default, you're assuming they get at least $200 million. And not only that, he also won the award in 2018 with the Rays. Dude's going to be swimming in money by baseball standards, right? Well, Snell's highest offer was reportedly $150 million by the Yankees, something he refused in hopes for more. On the surface, you think, how the hell can a 2-time Cy Young Award winner who just won it for the second time have a shortage of interest? But with context, it makes total sense. Other than those 2 seasons, Snell wasn't dominant in any of them. He was either hurt or just not that great and always had a walk issue. Even in the Cy Young year in 2023, he walked the most hitters in all baseball. That's not a good long-term sustainable model of pitching, at least not one that you want to trust with an insane contract. So many people saw Snell settling with the Giants for a short-term deal with an opt-out after the first one as a complete failure and botched free agency from Scott Boras, someone who failed to get Snell what he wanted. But not only does Snell disagree with that idea, but he's willing to publicly go to bat for his agent to call out another player who is now a former client of Boras. Jordan Montgomery was the 5th guy who, like his fellow Boras clients, wanted a long-term deal, and especially with a guy like Montgomery, someone who's never been looked at as an ace or a top-tier pitcher, this was his time to go out and get the most money possible. He's coming off the best years of his career, playing for multiple teams and being a pivotal part of the Texas Rangers World Series championship. This was the best moment to get a big fat contract. But just like all the other guys went, Montgomery did not get the long-term deal he wanted and had to settle last minute with the Arizona Diamondbacks for a short-term deal with an opt-out after the first year. Because he signed so late, like Blake Snell and JD Martinez, his spring training was delayed and of course his regular season. All 3 have since come back to the field and played most of this year, and everyone has been just about what you would expect from them, really. JD has been good, Cody Bellinger has been good, Matt Chapman has been good and almost mirroring what he did in Toronto, with an above average bat and elite defense at third base. Blake Snell has regressed from what he was last year, but he's still good and even threw a no-hitter recently. So all those guys have been very predictable in terms of what they've done. They've been good, but not worth a massive contract. Not groundbreaking stuff here, we kind of expected this, but Jordan Montgomery has taken a real step back. Montgomery hasn't just regressed, he's been awful and basically unplayable. He's having by far the worst year of his career. He's getting crushed out there, with it getting so bad to the point that he's been recently demoted to the bullpen. And to make matters worse, Montgomery hasn't shown that much responsibility for his struggles. Obviously, I'm not saying he's totally blaming everyone else but himself. I'm sure he knows that he sucks and it's mostly because of himself, but he's really said a lot of the wrong things. He recently complained about how hot it was to pitch at Chase Field in Arizona, which, okay, cool, he's being completely honest, but I just don't know if that's a good thing to say out loud when you're this bad. The fans don't want to hear that, and frankly, the fans don't care about that. Either way, you're getting paid a ton of money, and they want to see you pitch and do well. And then he came out more recently to kind of shift the blame even more so. The D-backs were recently in Boston, a place that Montgomery almost signed in the offseason, and when asked about the whole situation, Montgomery blatantly called out Scott Boras, saying that he kind of botched his contract situation and he's just trying to move forward. Montgomery immediately left Boras' agency after he signed his Diamondbacks contract, and now he's throwing shots over at Boras because he didn't get the job done. But at the same time, it's not like these teams were dumb to give the contracts that they gave out. They were very smart, and it's proven to be exactly what we all thought. None of those players represented by Boras were worth what they were going for. It's just simple baseball knowledge to look at the context of everything with each player and understand you don't want to commit to them for that long. I don't know if you can blame Boras for that, but Montgomery is, and Blake Snell is not having it. He's sticking by his agent's side and calling out Montgomery for his comments. When asked about his relationship with Boras, Snell said his experience with Scott has been great, saying that he told him everything that was happening, all the offers he got, so for him to just get bashed for what he believes is false is not fair, and he really strongly believes that. Going on to call Boras an honorable man who shouldn't be held accountable for Montgomery's situation. Quote, "I've seen how Montgomery struggled, but he signed the deal that he ultimately wanted to sign. He has the choice. I don't know what other deals he was offered, but I know everything that was offered to me. It's just sad that he thinks that way when I see Scott as a very honorable man." Again, I'm kind of with Snell on this one, especially knowing that there's really not much Boras, if anything, could have done for his players, considering those players were just not worth long-term commitments, and the teams were not going to budge no matter what. You really can't blame Boras for that. Let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.